YouTubers, Pastor Bob. I hope you guys are having a blessed week. Mine was pretty good. Hey, you know what? I was out yesterday and we started off in the morning with the bluest skies I've seen in a long time. And I kind of wait around. I go out there with Mr. Broad a couple hours later, and sure enough, here's a fleet of planes. I mean, a bunch of them. And they're just spraying the sky back and forth. It looked like a couple of kids were up there playing tic-tac-toe for an hour. They just sprayed the heck out of us, and by afternoon, it was just complete milky white. You know, and then I don't get it. Sometimes I'll talk to people, you know, like at church or whatever, and I'll bring up chemtrails. And they're like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And I'm thinking, don't you ever look up? Don't you ever look up? So, man, I don't know what they're doing here where I live in Northern California, but I'll tell you what, we haven't had any cold weather whatsoever. I mean, I'm still mowing my lawn every weekend. We haven't had any frost on the windshields, nothing. I think global warming is a farce. I think they're trying to create their own global warming. So listen, I wanted to talk to you today about the status of America. You know that when God led the children of Israel into the promised land, He drove out the inhabitants of that land. And there was a reason He drove them out. And that's what I wanted to go over with you today. And our scripture is taken from Deuteronomy 18, verse 9 to 12. And this is what the Lord warns them about. And when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God gives thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abomination of those nations. There shall not be found among you any that makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or that uses divination, an observer of times, an enchanter, or a witch, a charmer, a consulter with familiar spirits, a wizard, or necromancer. For all these things are an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God does drive out from them all the people that are before you. So all these things, there's about 7 or 8 of them God calls an absolute abomination. He says, that's the reason I'm driving these people out. Well, let's take a little look and see if America today resembles any of these nations that the Lord drove out. Verse 10, the first one, it says, one that makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire. And what that means is sacrificing your children. People, modern day abortion is the exact same thing. Modern day abortion, the entire Planned Parenthood organization, they are sacrificing these young children to demons. That's exactly what it is. They are sacrificing these babies to demons. And all you have to do is look into the history of Planned Parenthood and Margaret Thatcher to know that that's true. So yes, America is causing its children to pass through the fire. Same thing. A charmer. A charmer is chanting or reciting a magic spell. How many of you saw the Super Bowl halftime show? That's exactly what that whole thing was, start to finish. You know, I never really realized all that until one time I saw an interview with David Crosby of Crosby, Stills and Nash. David Crosby got up there, and this is what he said. And people, I used to love Crosby, Stills and Nash. I love their music. I still do to this day. But this is what David Crosby said. He said whenever they cut the master record, before all the other records were produced off that master, they would go into a little room and they would set that record down, and all those people would get around it and they would chant a spell over that record, so that all the people, when that record was made into the millions of record that was distributed, that spell that they put on that record would be transferred to the other records and then to the people that heard it. Same exact thing, and that's exactly what that Super Bowl show is about. It's about casting a spell on everyone that watches it. A consulter with familiar spirits. This is what a Ouija board's all about. You know, Ouija boards are selling in America better than they ever have. Trying to contact the dead. This lady, you know this lady, the Long Island Medium, that show that's on TV? That's what this lady does. She conjures up the dead. She talks to Uncle Fred. Aunt Alma tells you everything's fine on the other side. She has no clue she's talking to demons. But America is full of those that consult with familiar spirits. Look at Beyonce. When Beyonce takes the stage, she says that these demons come into her. She said she couldn't perform like that on her own. A wizard. A man who has magical powers, especially in legends and fiery tales. A sorcerer, a warlock, a male witch. People, the Church of Satan is alive and well in America today, and it is full of male witches. I had a friend of mine that was in the New Age movement, and he told me that he actually started getting power from these demonic forces, and he said that he could turn on the gas and he could light a gas stove without an igniter. That power is real, and people tap into it. Necromancy. Conjuring of the spirits of the dead for purpose of magically revealing the future. Influencing the course of events. The novel centers on the practice of necromancy and its influence in the world of the living. These are fortune tellers and card readers. You know, a lot of people think, well, we don't do that. People, there's not a publication in America, newspaper-wise, that doesn't have your horoscope in it. You can go online and read your horoscope from a bunch of different sources. That is prevalent throughout America. Every day there are millions and millions of people that won't walk out their front door until they've read their horoscope. How many people go into a Chinese restaurant and eat, and in the end they break open that fortune cookie and read it and believe what it says? It happens all the time. People, let me tell you something. America is exactly like the nations that God drove out from before the children of Israel. There's not one sin that they were doing that we're not doing today, and America is full of it. Let me tell you something. I've gone out into the woods, and this has been happening for the last 30-some years. Every time I go hiking somewhere, we always come upon an altar. We were in the Redwood National Forest and came upon these stones that were in a circle, and before we even got there, we could smell it. And we got up there, and these people had sacrificed some kind of animal. It was still laying there. And this has happened many, many times. We came upon an altar out in the middle of nowhere where all these witches and warlocks got together and tried to contact the dead. Probably did. What do you think this Burning Man is? You know, every year out in the Nevada desert they have what's called Burning Man. 100,000 people show up. Burning Man is in Africa. It's in most of the continents of the world. Same thing. Sacrificing to demons. That's what it's all about. Listen, I am thoroughly convinced that the only reason America is still standing today is because of the remnants of the Christians that are still in her. America still sends out thousands and thousands of missionaries throughout the world. We donate, we're flooding the world with Bibles. The only reason we're still standing is because of the remnant of the born-again believers that are still here. But you know what? That'll change one day because the bulk of us are dying off. And I got a feeling that, you know, right now with President Trump being in office for 4 years and hopefully another 4, I think that we kind of have a little bit of a reprieve. But as soon as Trump's gone, if we ever get another Democratic president and at the same time have a Democratic Congress and Senate, we're done. We're toast. They're going to be passing laws. They're going to be outlawing churches. They're going to be outlawing where we can't even speak. You know, in California right now, any professional in California cannot tell an LGBT person that what they're doing is wrong. Pastors can't do it. Nobody can do it. It's against the law. And it's going to get a whole lot worse. It's going to get a whole lot worse. They keep pushing the line to get their agenda. But anyway, listen. I just want to give you something to think about. Heaven or hell, you choose. Just remember, once you take your last breath, it's a done deal.